Welcome back. It has been an active week involving the investigations of former President Trump. On Friday, the Justice Department asked an appeals court to give it access to roughly 100 classified documents seized from Mar-a-Lago and not send them to a special master. Earlier, Justice sent out roughly 40 subpoenas in a separate investigation of Mr. Trump's efforts involving the efforts to overturn the election in and around January 6th. And then the Senate Judiciary Committee says it's going to investigate new allegations that the former president tried to use the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York to protect his friends and punish his enemies. And that last charge, that came in a new book. It's called Holding the Line. It's by Geoffrey Berman. He was fired by Mr. Trump as a U.S. attorney, and not just in any district. It was the Southern District of New York. He says it was for refusing to politicize the office. Well, Geoffrey Berman joins me now. Mr. Berman, welcome to Meet the Press.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So let me start with this. You allege a lot of political interference, both by the former Attorney General Barr as well as the former president here. How confident are you that laws were not broken in their attempt to quiet you?
Well, what I focus on is the violation of the cardinal principle of the Department of Justice, which is that partisan political concerns should not enter into any decision-making. And I wrote the book because I want people to understand the full scope of the improper and outrageous political interference by the Trump Justice Department in the cases of the Southern District of New York. The book demonstrates what Trump is capable of and what he's likely to do, and it provides a frontline view of just how vulnerable our justice system is.
Well, I wanted you to outline that because I got to play something that the former president said last night at a rally in Youngstown about the Justice Department. Take a listen.
And now the unprecedented weaponization of the Justice Department and the FBI to break into and raid the home of a former president of the United States.
You volunteered for the Trump campaign in 2016. You're not just some sort of, never Trumper or anti-Trumper, however people want to classify various Republicans. What's your reaction to that quote?
Well, it's really quite outrageous. Trump is trying to portray himself somehow as the victim of a politicized Department of Justice. And I think my book throws the irony of that. I mean, it was under Trump and under Barr that the politicization of the Department of Justice actually occurred. There's no evidence supporting that he was victimized, but my book details in granular level the evidence that the Department of Justice politicized and tried to politicize the cases of the Southern District of New York.
Look, there's a whole slew we could go through. I want to single out one because it's probably the easiest one to describe in a short interview, and that's John Kerry. Here's the former Secretary of State. President Trump was mad because he was trying to stop President Trump from pulling out of the Iran nuclear agreement. And suddenly, based on a couple of tweets, you get a referral to investigate John Kerry. Explain that.
It was extraordinary. So President Trump attacks John Kerry in 2 tweets, saying that John Kerry engaged in possible illegal conversations with Iranian officials over the Iran nuclear deal. The very next day, the Trump Justice Department refers the John Kerry criminal case to the Southern District of New York.
What case it existed based on this tweet?
Yeah, based on the tweet. So 2 tweets from the president. And the John Kerry criminal case is now a priority for the Department of Justice. And the statute they wanted us to use was enacted in 1799 and had never been successfully prosecuted. So about 220 years on the books, and there were no convictions. And so we investigated. John Kerry was entirely innocent, and yet the Justice Department continued to push us and push us and push us. And when I declined, Attorney General Barr did not take no for an answer. He transferred the case to another district. And thankfully, that district didn't indict either.
The various instances where you show this interference are pretty damning. One of them had to do with the case involving Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen is upset because he believes you should have come out sooner. I'm going to put up a quote here about you. He said, he had an obligation to come forward to Congress, the FBI, or law enforcement to disclose, not release the information years later in a book. Berman's actions are, at the bare minimum, unethical and quite possibly illegal. You did go before the House Judiciary Committee in 2020 before the campaign. But do you think you should have sounded the alarm louder or stronger? Do you understand?
I sounded the alarm very loudly when Attorney General Barr tried to fire me in June of 2020. I was about as noisy as I could be. I sent a press release to the entire country saying that the chief law enforcement officer of the country, Barr, lied when he said I was stepping down. And I used the language of the obstruction of justice statute, letting the country know what Barr was trying to do and how he had crossed the line. And then in my testimony before Congress, I reiterated that there would be that imposing an outsider, as Barr was trying to do, that an outsider who he trusted in charge of our cases and ongoing investigation would have disrupted and delayed those investigations. So I was very upfront with the danger that was going on.
If Donald Trump's elected president again, what happens to the Justice Department in your view?
Well, I shudder to think about it. The prospect of a second Trump administration frightens me. All of the dangerous and outrageous things he did as president will be repeated if there's a second administration, except this time he's going to be more successful in doing them. And remember, when he was president, he always knew he had to stand for re-election. If there's a second administration, he'll be free of those concerns.
Bill Barr, do you believe he committed any crimes in trying to obstruct your ability to do your job at SDNY?
Bill Barr wrote a book of 600 pages. And in that book, he didn't mention any of the improper and outrageous political interferences with our office. He never mentioned John Kerry. He never mentioned Greg Craig. He never mentioned Cohen. He never mentioned Hawkbank. He never mentioned my firing. It was a complete whitewash of what went on at the Justice Department under his leadership, and we are now beginning to take that whitewash away.
I want to play something Merrick Garland said yesterday at Ellis Island and get you to respond to it. Here's what he said.
The rule of law means that the law treats each of us alike. There is not one rule for friends, another for foes. One rule for the powerful, another for the powerless. One rule for the rich, another for the poor.
What kind of confidence do you have in Merrick Garland as Attorney General?
Oh, I think what he's done and said so far, I have a great deal of confidence in. And one of the things that he recently took an appeal regarding the Mar-a-Lago search, and there's an urgency to what the Department of Justice is pursuing here, and I understand it entirely, and it stems from the revelation that Donald Trump and those around Donald Trump are being investigated not just for the mishandling of classified information, but for obstruction of the subpoena requiring the production of that classified information. And that is an extremely serious charge. If that were in the Southern District, it would have our highest priority, and we would be moving very quickly on it.
I was just going to say very quickly, everybody's been wondering if indictments are coming, is this something we should expect in months, not years, or weeks, not months, or months, not years?
Well, there is the 60-day rule at the Department of Justice.
Would this qualify for it in your mind? The 60-day rule with Trump being, he's not on the ballot.
Well, yes, but you're not, it counsels against taking any action that could impact an election. And I think this would qualify for that. And so, I think that counsels, I don't think anything dramatic should be expected prior to the election.
All right. The book is Holding the Line. Geoffrey Berman, a former U.S. Attorney, Southern District of New York. Like I said, not just any district, the sovereign district of New York. Mr. Berman, thanks for coming on and sharing your perspective.
Thank you for having me.
You got it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.